What's up guys, welcome back. This is anime fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was Killed by an Anbu, becoming a hollow part 11. Now, let's begin. Achoo! Naruto's sneeze resonated throughout the confines of Kukaku's basement. He wiped his nose with a cloth and let out a deep sigh filled with yearning. My daughters are already expressing their longing for me. Adorned in elegant black, tailored attire, Yoruichi gestured dismissively with a wave of her hand. In just 2 days, Naruto. Only 2 days remain. Do you believe that your response may be somewhat exaggerated? I suppose I am quite devoted as a husband. What would you like to explore today? 2 days had elapsed since he eliminated Neutra and returned to the Soul Society, a period during which he impressed Yoruichi by demonstrating the Kido spells he had acquired from her. His advanced cognitive abilities, bolstered by his arithmetic skills, along with his exceptional sensory perception, enabled him to replicate a Kido spell after only a few demonstrations. He had attained a level of proficiency that allowed him to cast Kido spells following Yoruichi's guidance. Yoruichi experienced a mix of fascination and unease regarding his talent, noting a striking similarity to her former colleague, Kazuki Urahara. I am interested in acquiring knowledge about the intricacies of sexual intimacy. Please locate an escort service in the area. That is unfortunate. I received a rejection, he stated with a sigh. Understood. I will opt for Shunpo today. Please observe carefully. In an instant, she moved swiftly around the room, a blur of black energy. Her remarkable demonstration of Shunpo had previously granted her the esteemed title of Flash Goddess. With a keen gaze, he scrutinized her rapid movements, perceiving them as though she were racing in slow motion. Hirenkyaku and Sonido exhibited distinct mechanics in contrast to Shunpo. The previous method necessitated that users harness the ambient reishi to attain superhuman speed, rendering it a highly effective technique considering the reishi density of the environment. The latter enabled an errand car to propel through the air with a rapid burst of acceleration, reminiscent of a sonic jet. One notable advantage of Sonido is its ability to assist Aaronkar in evading the supernatural Reiatsu detection possessed by every high-level soul. Conversely, Shunpo required complete mastery of Riryoku and a considerable level of physical strength to accelerate, utilizing significant amounts of Riryoku and stamina in the process. The sole advantage, perhaps, lay in the diverse techniques that Yoruichi and Byakuya had expertly mastered. Sonido is highly beneficial. Yoruichi showcased the technique once again by executing sprints back and forth. Ability. Shunpo has been successfully acquired. Current master level. Basic. Mastering Shunpo was not a groundbreaking accomplishment, as he was already proficient in 2 other high-speed movement techniques. It's relatively easier when compared to Quincy's movement technique, Yoruichi remarked as she paused, a bead of sweat forming on her forehead. Continue to make efforts. However, before she could complete her statement, a whooshing sound interrupted her. Naruto had already appeared behind her, employing the same technique she used. Please proceed. I trust you didn't expect me to take weeks to master this. Yoruichi displayed a look of exasperation, folding her arms across her chest. I apologize for the oversight. How could I possibly make the mistake of applying common sense with the protagonist of this narrative? This individual is quite remarkable. She is causing complications with everything. Naruto maintained his silence, his brows furrowing as he directed his gaze toward the window. They were situated in Kukaku's basement, an area that was not particularly frequented by guests. A formidable Reiatsu was swiftly nearing their position. A captain, he contemplated. The universe seemed unwilling to provide him with a mere 15 days of tranquility prior to the Shinigami entrance exam. Challenges appeared to consistently gravitate towards him, no matter where he found himself. I do not recognize this Reiatsu, Yoruichi stated, her playful demeanor swiftly giving way to a focused and intense expression. A newly appointed captain. I will take cover as a precaution. With a quick leap, she ascended, transforming mid-jump and leaving behind a collection of discarded black garments. Is it possible that it is Soifan? You are aware that I am your most devoted admirer, placing you on a pedestal that surpasses even the Soul King's throne, he remarked, his eyes gleaming with a hint of playful jest. Soifan held a deep admiration for Yoruichi. She would tear through the void upon receiving the news that her Yoruichi-sama was located in western Rukongai. Ah, her. Yoruichi laughed softly, a hint of nostalgia infusing her words. She assumed command of the second squad following my departure. I believe she does not hold me in high regard due to my current legal situation. You underestimate the influence of a devoted admirer, Yoruichi. Soi Fan exhibited a profound admiration for Yoruichi, often becoming visibly flustered in her presence. The individual with black hair exhibited a strong enthusiasm for the cat enthusiast. Simp? Could you please clarify what that means? It's probably for the best that you're not aware, Naruto responded, stifling a chuckle. However, you can be confident that if she seeks you out, she will need to address me beforehand. I am, after all, the first in line to seek your favor. Surprised, Yoruichi responded with a genuine laugh before gracefully leaping onto his head. I would describe her as a generational talent, much like Byakuya. She is a highly skilled professional assassin capable of executing her tasks with precision and stealth. Are you certain you would want to risk offending someone of her caliber on my behalf? She certainly did not acknowledge that Naruto's talent rendered Soi Fan's abilities seemingly trivial. Omitting that detail was the most effective approach to manage his ego. Certainly, any assistance for a dark-skinned catgirl is appreciated. His immediate response rendered her speechless. Opening the door to the living room, Naruto paused abruptly. A distinctive scene unfolded before him. Ganju occupied a corner, observing with a composed demeanor. A visitor was seen performing Dagiza before Kukaku amidst the ongoing events. The spirited young woman gazed down at the man, arms crossed, her expression intense. Please, my dear niece. I kindly ask for your understanding on this occasion. I will improve moving forward. Due to his commitments as a Shinigami, Isshin had once more neglected his obligations to his family. It was likely the fourth occasion on which he failed to assist her promptly. Kukaku maintained her stance with arms crossed as she brought her foot down onto his head adorned with spiky black hair. Out. At this moment. Your absence during critical times for your family is concerning. Naruto's eyes widened in realization as he identified the man being subdued beneath Kukaku's foot. Ichigo's father, such a light-hearted individual. As Kukaku moved aside, Isshin appeared, smiling at Naruto as though he had not just experienced embarrassment at the hands of his niece. And who is this distinguished young man, Kukaku? Have you recently found a partner? A noticeable tick appeared on Kukaku's face. Isshin Oji-san, please refrain from making irrelevant comments. He is Naruto, a colleague and a prospective Shinigami. Isshin's expression became more cheerful. You refer to a prospective Shinigami. Are you preparing for the upcoming test? Naruto acknowledged with a nod. What type of assessment is administered to applicants? An assessment of Ryotsu limits and the management of one's Riryoku. It should not pose a challenge for you, Isshin remarked. His eyes narrowed and a smile on his face. Your control appears to be exceptional based on my observations. Even while present in the same room as Naruto, Isshin found it challenging to detect his Ryotsu. While some might perceive his Ryotsu as low, Isshin recognized the significant strength of the individual before him. Naruto displayed a subtle smile. I am indebted to Kukaku. She is an outstanding mentor. Isshin's eyes widened at this revelation, while Kukaku did not contest Naruto's assertion. Ultimately, it was essential for someone other than Yoruichi to receive recognition for his exceptional Riryoku control. It is preferable for her to be the one rather than her brother Ganju or the cat. Without encountering any rejection, Isshin let out a hearty laugh before directing his attention to Ganju. Kukaku and Kaien are prepared, yet her Oji-san remains solitary. You operate independently, Ganju remarked with a chuckle. Managing the 10th division will certainly occupy your time. Isshin rubbed his nose, a glimmer of enthusiasm in his eye. Indeed, that's accurate. I am currently engaged in this role until I identify a suitable successor. He turned to Naruto and crossed his arms. With time, you may develop into a strong candidate. Naruto presented a subtle smile. Unbeknownst to Isshin, his anticipated successor was present in this district, the talented, silver-haired individual. Kukaku and Yoruichi shared a glance of understanding, both gently shaking their heads in unison. Isshin was focusing excessively on long-term prospects. Considering Naruto's capabilities, it is reasonable to expect that he would achieve the Bankai release of his Zanpakuto within a decade. Significantly, he had no intention of joining the 10th squad. Yoruichi's eyes narrowed as she detected an approaching presence. Kukaku exhaled deeply. Oji-san, your vice captain is present as well. Isshin raised his head, displaying an expression of surprise. What is her presence here? I must bring you back to work, Kukaku stated with a casual shrug. The existence of a Shinigami presents significant challenges, does it not? Naruto contemplated to recall the individual who held the position of vice captain under Isshin during that period. The sliding door creaked open, interrupting his train of thought and revealing the current vice captain of the 10th squad. A woman with wavy blonde hair that reached her shoulders entered, her standard Shinigami uniform highlighted by the vice captain's armband secured to the sash around her waist. The manner in which she utilized her Riryoku to adhere her garments to her figure clearly indicated her preference for style over functionality. He had always regarded Haribel as exceptionally attractive, yet Rangaku stood out in a category of her own. As she surveyed the room, Rangaku's focus was quickly captured by Naruto and the black cat resting atop his head. Although he wore simple attire, his wild silver hair and notable features were difficult to overlook. You have a lovely pet. I would treat her exceptionally well if she were my partner. Possessing her own catgirl as a manifestation of her Zanpakuto spirit was insufficient. One can never have an excess of felines, particularly considering the current scarcity of cats in the Seirei. I possess a keen eye for felines, he stated earnestly while gently pulling at Yoruichi's paw. This one is exceptional. Yoruichi emitted a hiss, remaining silent. Rangaku expressed her surprise, drawing attention to her posture. Your voice is exceptionally smooth. I would be pleased to listen to you perform a song or share a lullaby. It is unfortunate that you hail from Rukongai, otherwise, we could have developed a strong friendship. Hello. Which? Isshin let out a powerful roar. Please refrain from attempting to win over Kukaku-chan's partner in her presence. Kukaku delivered a precise strike to the back of Isshin's head. Could you please refrain from that behavior? Rangaku looked at Isshin with fiery eyes. She went right up to him and grabbed him by the collar. Kukaku, can I take this dumbass with me? Nope. Bring him to his office. Isshin yelled in disbelief as Rangaku dragged him down the hallways. Kukaku looked across at Naruto. She has no idea that you don't plan to stay in Rukongai for very long. That's good for her that you won't be joining her squad. Naruto grinned knowingly. We'll see how that goes. There was no rule that said he couldn't charm the vice captain from a different team. He would breach that rule for Rangaku, no matter what. At first, you might not think the blonde is the kind to date, but her sad experience with Jin could influence how people see her. If he does things the correct way, she might be open to more than just being friends with benefits. Here we are, 15 days later. It's finally time. The Rukongai shone with eagerness as the dawn light came in. The sky of Hueco Mundo is constantly gloomy and blocked off from any light of life, so this is such a big change. These worlds were different in every way. It's quite evident why Central 46 and Gode 13 banned the idea of Hollow having Shinigami powers or the other way around. I can't wait to see the real you as the Prince of Hollows. Nami was humming with enthusiasm. She was just as happy as Naruto to leave Rukongai. Before you say anything, remember that you are the Prince of Hollows. Haribel has formally and honorably taken you in as her son. Naruto just shrugged and said, whatever you say. This morning, he didn't want to fight. He gladly ate his meal while his eyes drifted across to Yoruichi, who was lazily drinking milk from a bowl. He thought it was strange that she turned into a cat only to be free. People who are in charge generally have some strange and interesting features. I feel strong, but I don't really see anything strange about myself. He had his crazy moments, that's for sure, but he mostly thought of himself as just a normal man. You're completely fine the way you are, partner. I pledge that if anything happens to you, I will destroy this whole world, starting with whoever damages you. Naruto felt a shiver go down his back. He couldn't just laugh it off as a joke because she was so passionate about it. There was a terrifying promise in every statement that couldn't be ignored. His Zanpakuto spirit had fully accepted her crazy, yandere side. It's the last day, Ganju stated to attempt to make Naruto feel better and get his mind off of all the insanity in his head. Nei-san, it looks like we won't see him for a long time now. What if we threw him a party to say goodbye? Ganju had grown to enjoy Naruto a lot after a few pleasant sparring rounds, so the parting made him feel both joyful and sad. A few days before, he had asked Naruto to teach him how to fight. He thought it was a good idea, so he went along with it. He showed Ganju a couple Kido spells to make his experience even better. The younger Shiba brother wanted to be a Shinigami, but he wasn't sure about leaving his sister all by herself. Kukaku glanced at Naruto quickly from the side. Over time, she began to like him more and more, and Ganju's idea truly made her think. She thought a departure party was a little much, but she thought a fun surprise for him would be a lovely touch. Will you miss me? Naruto said with a smile that was full of fun. Don't hold back. Today is the last day to let those strong feelings out and tell others what's really on your mind. Regrets may really get you down. Kukaku had really begun to like him, and now she just laughed at his fun flirting instead of becoming mad. He didn't have much time to seduce Kukaku because he was practicing hard with Yoruichi. Kukaku was a feisty tsundere who needed a lot more time and attention, especially with Yoruichi around to keep things exciting. With her prosthetic arm, Kukaku hit the table hard. I wish I could change one thing. Not getting to hit you in the face. That's so nice. You really are a wonderful, kind person. After the breakfast talk died down, Naruto went outside to locate Momo, who had been waiting for him by his house with great excitement. She smiled and then pointed him in the direction of the Seirei. The tall walls all around the huge estate made it hard to see. They seemed to rise up whenever someone approached close to the margins of the Seirei. He instantly saw that a lot of people were outside the western entrance. A lot of low-level souls want to become Shinigami because they don't have any physical demands or wants. Today was a chance for them to break free from the constraints of poverty and move toward a better life and a better future. Let's go there, Momo replied, her voice full of eagerness. Let's go. He couldn't help but smile at how happy she was. So, Toshiro didn't come. He had just given the young Toshiro a long lecture a week ago. Hiranmaru, Toshiro's Zanpakuto spirit, had ice powers that, when paired with Toshiro's own Ryotsu, injured his grandma a lot as he slept. To control his frost powers, Toshiro had to become a Shinigami. Naruto was not trying to brainwash the kid at all. Just keep it in mind. Shiro-chan. Momo's voice shook, and her face seemed like it was getting darker. I just couldn't find him. That's a little bit of a waste, Yoruichi added. He could have quickly risen to the top of the Shinigami ranks. He waved off Yoruichi's comment and gave Momo's shoulder a reassuring touch. Don't worry, he'll be there. Momo kept looking nervously at Naruto as they walked to the western gate. They both knew what she was worried about but didn't say anything. He'll be here, he murmured again to attempt to calm her down. Don't worry. Momo nodded her head with excitement. I really believe in Naruto-san. She had a slight crush on him, but he was sure he would get over it soon. She seemed very innocent, even though she was over 100 years old. He was deep in meditation when he saw a familiar silver-haired head amid the crowd. He felt a rush of relief wash over him. He had been worried that Toshiro would not come. What chance did he have against Yamamoto if he couldn't win over a kid like Toshiro? Shiro-chan. Momo's voice cut through the noise of the throng, and her arm waved in the air. Come here. When Toshiro heard Momo's words, he turned around and grimaced. So, let's talk about bedwetting. Momo playfully slapped Toshiro's shoulders and drew him in for a hug as he came closer. I was very worried about you. Why didn't you just go with me? Toshiro pushed her gently and scratched his cheek in an unpleasant way. He had been busy making a gift for his grandma to say goodbye, but he couldn't find the words until. So, what did you do that kept you so busy? Toshiro turned away when Naruto asked the inquiry. The boy genuinely appreciated that he had pointed out how he had been hurting his grandmother without meaning to. He couldn't stop thinking about how his carelessness might have killed his grandmother. It genuinely bothered him. I was just getting some flowers for Oba-san. Momo's face relaxed into a warm, friendly smile. Thank you so much, Shiro-chan. Don't worry about Oba-san. We will do our best to see her as often as we can. Yeah, Toshiro answered softly, as if he were agreeing with her. Of course. Naruto watched them talk to each other with a tiny smile on his face. Toshiro and Momo's pleasant exchanges made him feel nostalgic and reminded him of the real connection he had with Izumi. He was curious about how Izumi was doing without him. The first few weeks were probably the hardest, a real make-or-break period, but he felt better knowing that Lisa was there for him. Don't even think of putting that cultist woman next to these youngsters. That doesn't matter to me. We really do have a relationship. That's what actually matters. Oh boy. As the huge entryway slowly opened, a thunderous roar filled the air. The big figure holding up the door with ease was revealed. The giant pushed the gate up one last time and walked inside the Rukanga. The big gate slammed shut behind him, making the ground quake under their feet. The throng cheered, which was as loud as the massive door. Jidanbo-san. Momo joined in on the fun too. Naruto. Look at this. Jidanbo is this enormous dude. He used to live in the Rukongai, but for more than 300 years now he has been the guardian of the Western Gate. It seems like everyone here genuinely cares about him. Toshiro shrugged and said, I don't see the point. He didn't care about all the hoopla. So, when does the test really begin? Just hang in there, he murmured, putting his hands on Toshiro's shoulders. Being patient is the most important thing. We don't break the egg to get a chicken. We hatch it. Well, that's coming from the person who can't wait. Toshiro nodded seriously. He learned more from Naruto in 10 days than he had in the last few decades. A middle-aged woman in a black kimono walked right in when Jidanbo moved aside. She looked really smart with her tidy spectacles and book in hand. But next to Jidanbo's huge body, she looked more like a child than an adult. The giant was more than 10 feet tall and had arms that were thicker than most trees. Hello there. Welcome to the Shino Academy entrance tests that happen every year. I'm Eri Masashi, your examiner, she stated as she flipped open her book and adjusted her spectacles. If you want to join the academy, just go ahead and sign up before the afternoon. Her words appeared to disappear into the buzzing crowd as she spoke, and then everything seemed heavy all of a sudden. Jidanbo let out his ryotsu, which made it evident how hard the exam actually was. Eri smiled coldly. Good luck with everything. Eri knew that Jidanbo, the giant, was a strong fighter with brute power that could match the freaks of the 11th Squad, a group of Shinigami led by Kenpachi Zaraki that was always looking for a fight. His ryotsu wasn't weak only because it wasn't too strong. When he truly pushed himself, he could easily match a seated officer. Yeah, he surely couldn't just let his ryotsu loose and kill everyone like that. When it came to Rukongai residents, the gatekeeper was merciful. He had a huge soft spot for everyone here. Eri let this bias slip because the second test was designed to screen out the unworthy. Eri looked up from her reading when she heard footsteps and saw a man with silver hair. Seirei had many of attractive men, but this one made her heart skip a beat, not even 1 minute. Did he employ any movement techniques? Eri studied the others, skepticism on her face, who, unlike him, were laboring to overcome the distance. Some had even fallen to their knees before taking 4 small steps. The closer one got to an overwhelming ryotsu, the more difficult it was to keep ground. However, the man in front of her was in close proximity to Jidanbo's ryotsu. He even found time to flash a refreshing smile. Examiner, do the honors. And his voice shattered every bit of confidence she had. She took another big breath to calm herself down. Speak. Naruto Uzumaki, he remarked with a smile, sidestepping to expose 2 figures. Momo Hinamori and Toshiro Hitsugaya. The bespectacled examiner nodded in recognition of the 2 behind Naruto. She then gave him a translucent crystal. Please focus on this. Try filling it with Riryoku. This is the second test that you must pass. She stared with bated breath as Naruto handled the crystal that determined one's spirit class. Etsu Nimaya created the apparatus to facilitate testing. After what seemed like a lifetime, a string of words appeared on the crystal, widening Eri's eyes. S Spirit Class Rank 1. A collective gasp came from the distant souls. Though 99% of them had no idea about the Spirit Class ranking, the 1% who did generated an uproar fit for a market square. Naruto's features were shaded by a slight frown. He had barely emitted enough Ryotsu to qualify for rank 4, the top of the vice captain class, which Kyan also held. After all, his goal was to secure at least a vice captain position to carry out his strategy. However, the spirit class measurement gadget accurately calculated his maximal Ryotsu, placing him on par with senior captains. He naively tipped his head. "Did I pass?" The examiner dropped her book in fright before quickly snatching it up. "I'm sorry, but could you please try again?" "It might be a mistake." Naruto's brow wrinkled, indicating obvious irritation. "Don't you have faith in your own equipment?" Momo peered out from behind Naruto, her eyes wide with wonder. "Is rank 1 the highest?" Aries said with a quivering nod. "It's similar to a captain. Of course, it's only potential. But Ishihara-sama will be able to emit this Ryotsu even in severe situations." She couldn't recall anyone obtaining rank 1 on this test in the recent few hundred years. Momo had stars in her eyes as she looked at Naruto's back. "Naruto-kun is amazing." Eri gave Naruto a pleading look. There were even tears in the corners of her eyes as she feared Naruto would accidentally release his Ryotsu out of irritation. With such a significant disparity in Ryotsu class, she would not faint, but rather die. Please." He sighed and repeated the test, which yielded the same result. Eri no longer barred his admittance and wrote his name immediately in the Class 1 column, which was filled with aristocratic geniuses. He easily qualified for Class 1. Eri wrote something extra at the end of the book before tearing the page out with a sly grin. She extended it to Naruto and cooed, "That's my address. Feel free to visit if you require help in any way." In a world where spirits lived for decades, Eri made an easy decision to form relations with a potential authoritative figure, particularly one who could advance to the post of vice captain or even seated officer. His charming features and voice also found their way deep into her heart, making the decision to sleep with him easy. The devious smile on Eri's face gave Naruto the perfect hint. Nonetheless, he smiled politely and acknowledged her gesture. He may or may not choose to entertain her, depending on his attitude. Momo and Hitsugaya were then given the opportunity to take their second test. Rank 5, R rank 2. Eri almost fainted with astonishment. She came hunting for souls with spirit class below rank 9, but instead found a bunch of potential monsters. 2 top geniuses and 1 elite talent. When Naruto saw Momo and Toshiro were assigned to the same class as him, he nodded and proceeded to stand on the side. "They both have silver hair, much like Jin Ichimaru-sama. Is it a coincidence? I will dye my hair silver after this." Hearing Eri's wild but humorous talking, he chuckled and motioned for Yoruichi to follow him. They found refuge by Jidanbo's side, where he began speaking to Momo. Nami's idle comments also helped to make things more interesting overall. Jidanbo, despite his height and might, was endearingly clumsy in conversation, making him an excellent discussion partner for Toshiro, who was somewhat shy. By the end of the day, only 300 persons had registered their names, with 200 making it through the second round. Only 5 made it to the renowned Class 1. The remainder had to go home dejected, leaving Jidanbo with a sad expression. Momo did her best to cheer him up, which took less than a minute. Despite his ability to destroy a dozen hollows with a single swing of his axe, the behemoth was as foolish as a child. Eri spent some time writing more information about each pupil before clearing her mouth. "You did great today, but your adventure is only beginning. Enjoy tonight with your family and loved ones. Tomorrow, a new chapter begins. An instructor will meet you here in the morning and guide you to the Seirei and then to the Shino Academy." As she finished, Eri gave Naruto a cheeky wink before gracefully exiting through the gate. Yoruichi was not even in the mood to respond to his developing relationship with the instructor. He did not even attempt. "Shouldn't I let him seduce Captain Unohana?" Despite her bloody background, Captain Unohana remained a woman. Maybe she'd fall beneath his enticing spell. It was best to let him work his charm on Captain Unohana and then utilize her to alert Captain Commander. With his Kaido skills, he should easily make it into the 4th squad. She felt satisfied after teaching him the branch of Kido that specializes in healing, Kaido. Toshiro blinked and scratched his head. "Hey, I thought they would take us to the Seirei right away." He wouldn't have spent so much time gathering flowers if he knew the instructor would allow them some time. With swollen cheeks, Momo mumbled, It's a compensation for the time we won't be able to spend with Oba-san in the coming months. Naruto stroked their heads. You all know Jidanbo. He'll let you out of the gate without question. Don't corrupt them, Yoruichi replied. Just don't teach them bad stuff. Momo giggled before looking at her fellow district residents and departing with drooping shoulders. I feel sad for them. Those who are denied should be grateful about this, Yoruichi added sternly. Ryotsu is extremely important in fighting for our souls. We can't have Shinigami who can't defeat the lowest level hollows on the battlefield. Naruto nodded. Yoruichi, which was your spirit class before entering the academy? Rank 2 like Toshiro, she remarked, looking at him. Don't let this go to your head. This is just your potential. To become a vice captain class candidate, you must have hundreds of years of practice and master the Shikai release of your Zanpakuto. To qualify for the captain position, you must also master Bankai release. A high spirit class ranking means nothing on the battlefield. Toshiro listened carefully to her serious instruction. While Naruto taught in a calm and lighthearted manner, Yoruichi took a serious tone, which contrasted with her typically laid-back nature. Toshiro was grateful to both of them for teaching him so many new things. Momo cheerfully exclaimed, Shiro-chan will be a captain, and I'll be his vice captain. Yoruichi released a sigh. Naruto, handle her. My remarks do not get through to her. Naruto chuckled. It is fine. She will learn during her academy time. While he was excited to see her improve, he didn't want to spend the entire 6 years at the academy. His stay in the academy varied according on his mood. As the gang walked towards Toshiro's house for a pleasant stay, the night skies suddenly lit up with fireworks. Dazzling pictures of Naruto's chibi visage and a playful cat dancing flooded the sky. Classic Kukaku, Naruto replied, chuckling. I love her. Yoruichi chuckled heartily. Me too. A single sphere of light flickered on the ceiling, illuminating a huge chamber. A throne-like chair was in the center of the room, with a woman perched on top of it, exuding a powerful aura. She wore raven black twintails down to her shoulders and an eye-patch mask over her left eye, symbolizing her metamorphosis from a hollow to an Arankar. Lolly Ivern was the former number 4 Espada and mistress of King Baragon. Zailaporo and Araniro were the only 2 survivors of Espada. Zailaporo was as busy as usual in his research laboratory, unconcerned about Hueco Mundo's political situation. Araniro departed Las Noches after word of Baragon's death spread. Jillian Arankar didn't want to wait for Baragon's killer to find them. Lolly, as an Espada, could easily control the mayhem and become Las Noches' new king. Her tenure in leadership had not been peaceful thus far. Her single pink eye narrowed as she looked at the group of hollows before her with disdain. 2 Ajukas and at least 2 dozen lesser hollows. Did you manage to track them to their base? The Ajukas went forward and said, My queen, we couldn't. They weren't within the boundaries of Las Noches. Lolly gritted her teeth. 2 Arankars invaded her country, slaughtered her troops, and fled with no consequences. How would she maintain her reputation as a queen if she allowed 2 random hollows step all over her? You incompetent bastards, she exclaimed. How? Lolly, calm down, urged Mainoli Malia, one of Baragon's other mistresses, who stood beside her. She had slicked up blonde hair and bangs that partially covered her right eye, which was one of the fragments of her hollow mask. This is not their fault. We haven't seen those hollows in over 2 weeks. Before Mainoli could continue, Lolly kicked her in the stomach, sending her tumbling into the wall. Lolly and Sonito confronted Mainoli and seized her collar, causing her to stand up. Never interrupt the queen when she talks. Mainoli cast a defiant glare at Lolly, maintaining silence, an action that consistently provoked Lolly's anger. Lolly exclaimed with frustration as she forcefully pushed Mainoli's head against the wall. I will assign those individuals to your responsibility. Take these individuals and ensure I receive results. Indeed, Your Majesty. Mainoli complied and guided the hollows away from the throne room, while Lolly resumed her position of authority in Hueco Mundo. Baragon's death served as a continual reminder for her to manage her arrogance, yet her subordinates consistently incited the more aggressive aspects of her personality. The hollows of Las Noches exhibit a level of intelligence and rudeness that exceeds my expectations. A series of measured claps resonated as Jin Ichimaru entered Lolly's chamber, the ample sleeves of his yukata gently swaying with the breeze. His eyes were closed in that distinctive, mysterious smile, yet they appeared to perceive everything. To be candid, he had not anticipated the waves of civil war to subside so quickly. Moreover, the astute hollow lady seated on the throne distinguished herself from all Ajukas, as she possessed the abilities of both Shinigami and Hollow. She is lacking in strength. Jin experienced disappointment. He anticipated encountering at least a Vasto Lord or a Hollow that had awakened formidable power. Instead, he observed a group of unmotivated individuals lacking ambition and the drive for self-improvement. None of them could be deemed sufficiently worthy to present Aizen as a gift. Aizen-sama would likely find those rebels to be of greater interest. Lolly felt a sudden tightness in her throat as the corner of Jin's lips twisted into a cruel smile. His serene smile evoked a sense of unease, causing her heart to quicken as she instinctively recoiled from the imposing presence of the Shinigami. "May I inquire about your identity? What do you require from me?" she inquired, trepidation evident in her voice. "Nothing. I decided to enter Las Noches," Jin remarked, his smile broadening, and playfully challenged the new ruler. "I am merely a humble queen." "Please," she descended from the throne and offered it to Jin. "You have the potential to ascend as the ruler of Hueco Mundo, Shinigami-sama." She even attempted to allure him by revealing herself, sacrificing her dignity for the sake of survival. However, he grasped her hand, appearing disinterested. "I find that unacceptable," Jin stated, shaking his head. "I seek information. Your contributions are not meeting expectations." Lolly closed her eyes, trembling on the ground. "I kindly request that you refrain from causing me harm." Jin was not a bully. However, he could comprehend the exhilaration that some individuals experienced when overpowering those who were vulnerable. "I will not take your life." Lolly lifted her head, revealing a radiant smile on her tear-streaked face. "Shinigami-sama, you are exceptionally." Jin released a measure of his Ryotsu, causing her to become immobilized. "Provided that you uphold your authority over Hueco Mundo as its sovereign. The quicker Aizen's strategies for Hueco Mundo are completed, the sooner he will initiate his assault on the Soul Society, and the sooner Jin will have the opportunity to drive his Kamishini no Yari through Aizen's heart. He would savor each moment of his calculated revenge against the pain Aizen caused his childhood friend. Let us exercise patience." "Indeed, my companion," his Zanpakuto spirit responded. "Position yourself strategically and take action when your opponent is least prepared. Alternatively, devise a counter-strategy for the anticipated response to my unexpected offensive." Lolly forcefully struck her head against the ground. "I will, Shinigami-sama. I am committed to taking every necessary action to maintain my position of authority. There is no need for concern." Jin let out a deep sigh. He would not need to navigate so many obstacles if he were able to surpass Aizen's strength. The world bestowed upon him remarkable talent, yet it fell short of satisfying his singular ambition for retribution. The unfortunate journey of an individual who selected a route of darkness to safeguard the illumination he valued. Jin neither confirmed nor denied the assertion regarding his Zanpakuto spirit. This hunter is not performing well. Alternatively, the rabbit possesses greater intelligence. Francesca Mila Rose, known for her mischievous nature, was comfortably positioned on a couch, observing a black and white rendition of Looney Tunes on the television. Chiruchi was positioned at the end of the couch, finding it difficult to refrain from correcting Mila Rose. They were compelled to withdraw 2 weeks ago, and now they have no option but to remain within the living world. Mila Rose had no objections. In a brief time frame, she successfully achieved her objective of consuming more than a dozen Jillians and several Ajukas. Her life here was exceptional. The abundance of sushi and a plethora of television shows, all supported by Naruto's financial resources, ensured her satisfaction. The sole absent element in her ideal life was Naruto, who elicited complex emotions within her. Sung Sun and Apache descended the stairs, drawing Haribel's notice. Haribel positioned her arms firmly beneath her chest. "Could you please share your destination?" "To the library," Sung Sun stated with a gentle smile. I will provide Apache with the necessary education to develop her reading and writing skills. We must ensure that she does not bring embarrassment to our family. Sung's son required just a few hours to achieve proficiency in the modern Japanese language. Apache, however, required over a week to comprehend even basic vocabulary. Apache averted her gaze, choosing not to engage with Haribel. She was still somewhat frustrated about not being able to travel to Hueco Mundo to pursue hollows. The hollow hunter incited a strong reaction within her. She anticipated the moment when Naruto would inform her that the hollow hunter had been eliminated. As they stepped outside the mansion, Sung's son and Apache barely traversed 3 streets when they encountered an unforeseen sight. A maid accompanied by her mistress. Izumi, Naruto's Quincy's older sister, is accompanied by her maid, Lisa. Sung's son understood the depth of Naruto's feelings for Izumi, while also recognizing his own interest in pursuing a romantic relationship with Lisa, based on their interactions to date. Lisa was among the visored with whom she could easily establish rapport. Where might they be headed? Sung's son inquired quietly to Apache regarding the circumstances at hand. This does not seem appropriate, Apache stated. It would be best to allow them their space. Furthermore, I prefer that Izumi remains unaware of our presence. Everything will be alright. It is imperative that you refrain from releasing your Ryotsu under any circumstances. Apache reluctantly consented to participate in Sung's son's surveillance strategy. Izumi and Lisa halted in front of an unusual location. Apache carefully articulated the words displayed on the whiteboard affixed to the building. Karakura's boxing gym. Could you please provide information about this location? Sung's son observed intently as a robust man escorted Lisa and Izumi into the building. Lisa exhibited an unusual and complex personality, yet she remained a virgin and had not engaged in any intimate relationships. However, observing Lisa and Izumi enter a confined area with another individual prompted her doubts. What if she developed feelings for another individual? Sung's son paused for an additional 5 minutes before proceeding into the building alongside Apache. What she observed left her perplexed. Please proceed, Izumi-sama. Naruto's alleged Quincy's older sister was delivering precise left and right hooks to a punching bag. The matriarch of the Ishida clan was dressed in a tank top and shorts, with perspiration glistening on her skin. Her powerful strikes eliminated any doubt. She was utilizing the punching bag as an outlet for her frustration. Izumi's maid consistently offered her unwavering support. Defeat the sandbag thoroughly. Izumi secured the punching bag firmly with her forearms and delivered powerful knee strikes to it. After a brief interval of intense effort, Izumi paused to refresh herself, using a towel to wipe away her perspiration. Her gaze fell upon the 2 intrigued observers, one a native Japanese beauty, the other a striking foreigner. Izumi displayed a refreshing smile. Are you here to engage in boxing practice as well? Lisa directed a skeptical gaze towards Sung's son and Apache. It seems they are quite enthusiastic admirers of yours, Izumi-sama. Sung's son chuckled softly. I am not suited for physical confrontations. However, my colleague Apache excels in that area. Apache expressed her exasperation with a roll of her eyes. I am not. She would prefer to engage in combat with Neliel rather than strike an inanimate object. The centaur Ajukas remained in Hueco Mundo, a location where the hollow hunter could pursue her. What are his objectives? The meticulous Naruto she was familiar with would not commit such an obvious error. Neliel's presence in Hueco Mundo must have a purpose, especially considering her companions were relocated to a secure island. Izumi's elevated spirits dissipated the moment she noticed a black car parked outside Ishida Mansion. The origin of her distress was positioned at the entrance alongside her attendants, Akira and Katsumi. He was a man of moderate stature with neatly styled black hair and a pair of rimless glasses adorning his face. Donning a tattered cloak, his solemn demeanor accentuated his introspective presence. 4 months of Quincy training represented a short period for his altered sense of time. Soken-san, Izumi said quietly as he moved closer to the man. Welcome back, Soken acknowledged with a steady demeanor. I have been anticipating your arrival. Izumi tightened her fists while observing Soken's back. Soken-san, I have come to a decision. Soken glanced over his shoulder, a slight frown appearing on his face. Izumi, I believe it is best for us to part ways. The words lingered in the atmosphere, and Soken's gaze remained fixed on her face, analyzing, exploring. He rescued her from a hollow following his exile from Wandenreich. She subsequently proposed marriage, and he agreed to her suggestion to continue the Quincy bloodline. A Quincy family that strives for knowledge and understanding, unlike those living in Wandenreich, the Quincy Empire. She now sought to distance herself from this relationship. His prior interactions with women in Wandenreich rendered Izumi's transformation significantly more palatable. Every woman in that environment exhibited troubling behavior. May I inquire about the reason? Soken sought an explanation, not from a place of affection. He was uncertain if he had ever truly experienced that emotion, but from a standpoint of respect for her as a fellow Quincy. If she were to make an error, it would weigh heavily on his conscience. Izumi nodded as she continued, I have made the decision to dedicate my life to another. Soken exhaled deeply. It was yet another instance of a woman becoming involved with another man. He was pleased that it occurred prior to establishing any significant relationship. He was uncertain about his ability to love anyone at all. Can you confirm that? Are you certain he is the right choice? Yes, Izumi replied without additional elaboration. But as two people with similar goals, I'd still like to stay as allies. All right. I'll let Akira file for divorce, he said, his tone light. He turned with a knowing expression and made his way to the mansion. Izumi felt a huge weight lifted off of her chest. While waiting for Naruto's return, she could take her time selecting Quincy companions or ladies with powerful spiritual abilities. Lisa adjusted her glasses. Romance novels depicting sensual scenarios could not persuade her that political marriage was total crap. The situation before her simply increased her goodwill toward her love-based relationships. Izumi-sama, would you still live in this mansion? How would that be appropriate after this? Izumi shakes her head. Do not worry about your salary. I can provide funding, but you must be willing to relocate. I own a few stores in Japan. Although the mansion belonged to her, she did not take it from Soken due to respect. After all, Soken had come to Japan empty-handed, while Izumi had worked relentlessly to develop the family business her father left behind. Lisa hesitated. She had already slipped behind her fellow visored throughout training. She wouldn't be able to keep her current battle abilities if she stayed with Izumi. Izumi gave out a sardonic laugh. Don't worry. I'll buy a place here. Her mind would still be a jumble if Lisa wasn't there to console her. She could not afford to lose Lisa's business at any cost. That makes things easier, Lisa explained. However, I'd like to apply for a part-time schedule from now on. I'll gladly accept that condition. You cannot spend your own life while caring for me. We finally have italics in the web novel. It took them a decade to find out the fundamental function, but I'm delighted they included it. Seeing the Seirei from afar and walking through its massive gates was a whole other experience. Momo Hinamori was captivated by the city's grandeur, which contrasted starkly with Rukongai's rustic simplicity. Majestic buildings like giants, with stately arches and gleaming rooftops, give the city a noble aura. The citizens on the streets had nice attire, and their ryotsu was stronger and more severe than 99% of the Rukongai population. The wall that separated them did more than just separate districts. It was a chasm between heaven and earth. Momo's gaze darted about without stopping. This is stunning. Stop gawking like an idiot, Toshiro chastised, his tone tinged with humiliation and regret. It's just a fancier version of our village. Momo stared at Toshiro, as if he were the idiot here, not her. Her unwavering stare oddly unnerved him. This is the paradise we were promised. Naruto poked Yoruichi, who was resting on his head. But it is reserved for Shinigami. Life is never fair, but the afterlife should be more equal. Yoruichi bit his ear. Get your head out of religious books. She was not afraid to communicate in her cat shape. The noisy mob of 3 students provided an excellent cover for her. Complains the motherfucker who hatched with Vasto Lord-level power. Nami's snarky response made him laugh. Partner, destroy the Seirei after we get power. Life is equally difficult for everyone, sweetheart. Let others be joyful. Nava. Soon, the academy appeared. A large multi-story structure with an architectural style reminiscent of the Seirei. Naruto's group, along with many other new pupils, were led through several corridors. Each hall was responsible for providing uniforms and relaying assigned dormitory numbers to each student. Naruto spotted two surprising faces in a different queue. Rukia and Renji. Rukia seems concentrated and motivated. He remembered her missing both when she first joined the academy. Only after meeting Kyan did she show greater confidence. They were scheduled to join 2 years later. What exactly happened? His mind whirled, connecting the dots. If I had to guess, it's due to the balance disaster in Rukongai. Despite learning the repercussions of Baragon's death, he felt no guilt. His alignment would not be neutral evil if he started crying for random individuals. Possibly. I wonder if the world will force diverse situations to feed her growth? You talk as if the planet were a living organism. World isn't, but fate truly exists, partner, otherwise we wouldn't be together like this. Very silky. Nami giggled. Don't compliment my flirting skills. Do you know what bothers me about Rukia? Kyan. Will he experience the same events after meeting you? In a few years, Kyan's wife would be slain by an abandoned hollow experiment created by Aizen. Kyan would attempt to avenge his wife but would fail against the hollow. Naruto wanted to spare Kyan from his fate, but convincing him was difficult. Miyako was a third-ranking seated officer, while Kyan was the vice captain. They were both aware of the dangers associated with cleansing hollows. Join Kyan's squad instead of the fourth squad, sacrificing their aspirations. No way. I'm becoming a battle healer and courting Hana. Yoruichi rubbed his head, focusing his attention back on the queue. The teacher handed him his uniform, and he rejoined the group. Momo seemed disappointed when he told him the dormitory number. Why can't we all share the same dorm room? It is so unfair. Boys and females' dorms had separate dorm buildings, as if they were high school students. Life is never fair, Toshiro replied, chuckling. I landed in the same dorm room as Naruto-san. It's great. Nobody will bully you with me present. It's not like people even want to bully me, Toshiro mumbled under his breath, drawing a gentle glance from Naruto. We'll be in class 1. Today was dedicated for students to become acquainted with the academy and dorm grounds. The lessons would begin tomorrow, with an opening ceremony led by a prominent member of the Gote 13. The following morning, sakura petals drifted around in the morning, as if they were following a custom. Students dressed in clean uniforms strolled about the grounds, their blue and red hakama giving brilliant pops of color to the scene. The student uniform was designed to resemble a traditional Shinigami attire, but with blue hakama, trousers, for males and red hakama for female students. Naruto wasn't a lover of traditional clothing, but they were lightweight and comfy. He followed the herd of first-year students into the courtyard, where the opening ceremony was scheduled to take place. His steps faltered when he noticed the little woman on the podium. She had short hair in 2 thin braids wrapped in white fabric. She appeared young, yet her dangerous Ryotsu prevented anyone from saying anything in her presence. The word, "Captain" was clearly printed on her armband. Sheesh. Her Majesty's simp is here. He was not surprised to see Soifan. Each year, a new Gote 13 captain hosts the opening ceremony. Soifan, captain of the 2nd squad and commander of Onmitsukido, took up this year's task. To be honest, he would have chosen Hana or Yukitaki in this position. Soifan may detect her dear Yoruichi-sama and raise a tremendous fuss. Wanna say hi? Nope. Yoruichi responded quickly, relaxing against his shoulder. Hey. Look at her acting tough now. She used to chase me like a little baby. Say it to her face, coward. I'm not failing my mission. Soifan, who was looking for suitable assassin candidates, suddenly got goosebumps. Looking across the crowd, she spotted a black cat with dazzling golden eyes perched on a student's shoulder. The cat's eyes reminded her of something familiar, eliciting a deep, visceral reaction that made her blood boil. She narrowed her eyes at the white-haired man, who smiled back at her. It was a grin meant to tease others. A grin that brought back memories of the most loved and loathed person in her life. Without saying anything, both the pet and its master made her nervous. She could almost feel the delicious crunch of her fist against the smiling face. She gestured at him, causing the students around him to move away and pick him out. You have the black cat. Do you see anything funny? He looked around before pointing to his face. Me? His voice sparked interest among the kids. Soifan also became bewildered for a second. Why were you grinning like a fool? He touched the back of his skull. Smiling isn't a sin, is it? Even though he was in the presence of a captain, he lacked respect and etiquette. Soifan did not expect absolute reverence, but basic decency was the least a pupil could expect. It was more than simply a study institution. It served as a furnace for future Gote 13 soldiers. Discipline was not an option, it was mandatory. His carefree demeanor reminded her of the banished Shinigami, Kazuki Urahara, whom she would gladly murder. Soifan's hand tightened involuntarily. There is a time and place for everything, she murmured, beckoning him with her finger. Come over here. The entire group of students stared at him with sympathy. To insult a seated officer was to risk one's destiny. To affront a captain was to dance with death itself. And he was no average captain. This was the master assassin that ruled over the stealth force on Mitsukido and Second Squad. Naruto's response was not normal. He let Yoruichi drop down before proceeding through the route created by students dividing, a carefree bounce in his step as if he weren't on his way to execution. He jumped up to the podium and stood a few meters away from Soifan. What can I do for you? This opening ceremony will be a little different, Soifan explained as she turned to the pupils. I'll give you a little demonstration of Hikuda techniques and different ways to master them. Soifan chose to misuse her power for the very first time. Naruto couldn't shake off Yoruichi's lessons about Shinigami combat. They were still fresh in his mind. Shinigami have 4 basic fighting techniques they use. Zanjutsu, those sword fighting techniques. Ho-ho is the term used for all those quick, high-speed fighting moves that come from the art of Shunpo. Kido, those spells. And finally, we have Hikuda, which is the technique for unarmed fighting. Soifan was planning to show off her Hikuda techniques by using him as a punching bag. Like he would ever let Yoruichi's fanboy make a fool of him. He folded his arms across his chest. I never agreed to take part in this demonstration. Soifan shot him a cold glance. So, are you really going against what your boss said? Who's my boss? I'm a student at Shino Academy. There aren't any laws saying that students have to follow Gote 13 directly, he said with a casual shrug. Basically, the graduates who come on board with your team will be reporting to you. At the moment, all the academy staff is being managed by Central 46. He was really trying to do the impossible, getting the tough tomboy captain to not include him in her shady scheme. Sadly for him, his lengthy and reasoned statement didn't seem to make any impact on Soifan. It just made her think he was more and more like Kazuki. She absolutely loathed that guy, like, with the intensity of a blazing sun. Are you thinking about pulling out of a little demonstration? Who can really promise that someone like you won't bail on your friends when things get tough? If you keep insisting, I'll have to ask you to leave the academy right away. Soifan pushed back against his reasoning with her own thoughts, working hard to keep up her captain persona in front of the students. If it were up to her, she would have given his face a good smack a dozen times by now. He lifted an eyebrow. Actually, that's not quite right, Captain Soifan. I'm not avoiding a fight because I'm scared. I'm just trying to spare you the embarrassment of getting taken down by a first year. He was over trying to be reasonable. She was looking for a fight, and he was more than ready to oblige. The air around him felt like it was igniting, a wave of spiritual energy bursting forth and wrapping around him. The executive militia had him pinned down with their Ryotsu. Soifan had her own personal team that focused on unarmed and stealthy combat skills. To Soifan's surprise, he didn't even bat an eye. She figured out he wasn't your average guy the instant she picked up on his controlled Ryotsu. It's pretty amazing that a first-year student could easily fend off the combined Ryotsu of her punishment force. That's just miraculous. So, was he from a noble clan, or was he actually a spy sneaking into the Gote 13 for some shady plan? Soifan couldn't figure out who he was. Naruto popped his knuckles. Let's go. It seems like the opening ceremony is being delayed for no good reason. Soifan's hand reached up to her left shoulder, her fingers gripping the fabric of her Captain Haori, and with one smooth motion, she tossed it aside. Wearing a black sleeveless uniform, she showed off her strong physique, every curve and angle shaped for peak combat performance. She gently ran her fingers over the black armbands that covered most of her arms before getting into a fighting stance. Embrace the journey I'm about to create on your skin. Then she rushed at him, her leg moving so fast it looked like a blur as she aimed a kick right at his face. He casually deflected it with his left forearm and quickly followed up with a fierce strike aimed at her ribs. Stuck up there with no way to steer herself, she had to rely on Shunpo to make a quick getaway. Not a bad reaction time, she said, giving a reluctant nod, her gray eyes shining with a hint of mischief. Let's do it again. She launched a whirlwind of kicks and punches at him, pushing him right onto the defensive. It was like her body was a blur, with her fists and feet coming at you from every direction. She was fierce, almost like a little devil, even going for a kick right between his legs. She had that same style and intensity as Yoruichi, with whom he had sparred for 15 days. He also had the chance to battle some of the toughest captains, like the Visored. Taking on Soi Fan wasn't really a big deal for him now. Soi Fan's eyes grew wide as she focused on her attack. Even though she gave it her all, he matched her intensity blow for blow, his blocks and counterattacks moving with a smoothness she'd expect from someone seasoned, not a newbie at Shino Academy. He moved with such precision and confidence, it took her back to the predecessor she still looks up to even now. Yoruichi-sama. Even though she was feeling a bit nostalgic, they were throwing a whirlwind of attacks at each other, each one coming at her like a quick flash. The courtyard was alive with the sounds of strikes, blocks, and quick movements, echoing like thunder. The fighters danced around each other, their feet barely grazing the ground, crafting a stunning and intense display of human movement that was captivating to watch. The spectators were treated to a stunning display of Hikuda skills. They really couldn't have asked for a better start to their first day. The senior students even got in on the action, watching and cheering for the fight from afar. There was quite a crowd gathered for their fight. Meanwhile, Yoruichi was watching the match with a bit of a smug look in her eyes. She noticed how much Soi Fan had improved in martial arts, but Naruto was still the proud prodigy she had trained. He might not have had the same raw skills or battle experience, but his quick reactions and natural talent definitely helped balance things out. Naruto definitely wasn't going to let Soi Fan beat him in a martial arts contest. They both stopped in their tracks, Naruto's fist resting against her jaw while her hand was poised on his neck. The crowd collectively gasped as they came to understand the outcome of their spar. Whoa, he actually landed a hit. I can't believe this. Who's this guy? Does anyone know him? No way he's a first year. He just smiled calmly, not paying any mind to the random people staring at him. I suppose that's a draw. Soi Fan rolled her eyes. Who taught you? Was it? Clap, 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 Captain Soi Fan. That was an amazing display of your Hikuda techniques. Isshin Shiba's steady voice broke the tension as he appeared in the stadium. In a flash, he wrapped his arm around Naruto's shoulder, playfully pulling him into a headlock that felt more like a warm hug than anything else. Looks like you just couldn't help but stir things up on your first day. He showed up to protect Naruto from any stuck-up nobles thinking they could cause trouble, but instead, he found the young protege going head-to-head with Soi Fan. He's pretty much like Kukaku. Naruto wriggled free from the headlock and quickly adjusted his hair. I was just hanging out in the crowd over there. She was the one who started it. He threw Soi Fan under the bus. She really got the blame for everything. Captain Shiba, Soi Fan said, glancing back and forth between the two men, her expression a mix of suspicion and dawning understanding. How do you know each other? A friend of the family. That was a close call. He's just like my own kid. Soi Fan let out a sigh and looked over at Naruto. My bad, I messed that up. I kind of pushed you into this, but Captain Shiba never let on that you were keeping a generational talent like him under wraps. With his Hikuda techniques, he could step in as my successor. She quickly adjusted her approach after realizing Naruto was linked to another captain. Isshin chuckled at Soi Fan's idea of bringing Naruto into her squad. Get off. He's going to be the one who takes over after me. Naruto just shook his head. Let's get started with the opening ceremony. Isn't it about time we stopped putting this off? Yeah, Captain Yama is going to give me an earful tomorrow. Soi Fan quickly called her team together to deal with the extras who had shown up in the courtyard. What came next was a straightforward speech about how the students were being treated like soldiers. They really had to put in the effort to sharpen their skills if they wanted to get into the Gote 13. Sure, Naruto was definitely more curious about why Isshin showed up. I just wanted to swing by and show you some support. Isshin definitely had more going on than he showed, but he still appreciated the thought behind it. The key members of the Shiba clan ended up becoming his allies. It wasn't exactly the plan he had in mind, but he was more than happy to have them on his side. After that, Soy Fan sent everyone on their way to their homerooms. Isshin gave him a huge hug before heading out. "I'm here to help. What do you need assistance with today?" Yoruichi started walking alongside Naruto as they made their way to their classroom. "You had the chance to beat her. We should probably avoid making your fangirl cry in front of the kids." Soy Fan seemed to lose her motivation to keep fighting halfway through the battle, maybe because she noticed him fighting in a way that reminded her of Yoruichi. He really didn't find the idea of treating her this way appealing at all. Bragging about wins feels good only when the other side really put in their best effort and still came up short, or when they were outsmarted. That's a solid point. Yoruichi looked back at Momo and Toshiro, who were quietly trailing behind her. They're just like real kids. He could figure out why they looked so sad. They just stood there, frozen, watching him get bullied by a captain, even though they really wanted to step in and help. "No way!" Momo shouted. "It's just that we really wanted to help Naruto-san, but we weren't able to. We're just being a bit cowardly." He spun around and playfully messed up their hair. "Wow. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Your opponent was definitely out of your league," Yoruichi said with a nod. "Think of this memory as a little nudge about your weakness. Make the most of it to push your boundaries and grow stronger." Momo's eyes sparkled with determination. "I'm not going to let that happen again." Toshiro just nodded heavily, even though he was just as determined as Momo. Naruto felt pretty good about how his spontaneous fight with Soy Fan turned out. Getting people talking about his strength was a surefire way to get into the Gote 13, even if it meant catching the eye of Aizen and others like him. "I'm still a bit annoyed that you didn't win against her. We should avoid turning her into an enemy." Soy Fan had been training hard in her martial arts and Shunko ever since Yoruichi left her life. She really put her heart into honing her craft to step out of Yoruichi's shadow. She definitely would have lost her mind after getting beaten by a first-year student. As soon as Naruto stepped into the classroom, everyone looked at him with a mix of wariness and a touch of admiration. He was really curious about the classroom itself. It was a high school classroom, but it had this cool ancient Japanese style. It felt more spacious and was filled with lots of seats and chairs. The student body consisted predominantly of nobles. However, none exhibited any ostentation in his presence. In addition to his personal strengths, he received support from a captain, and the second squad captain also expressed a clear interest in him. Underestimating him would be a significant error. The students demonstrated a high level of respect towards Momo and Toshiro. Momo effortlessly made friends, while Toshiro appeared flustered, his thoughts becoming disoriented in the presence of friendliness. Who permitted this student to enter Class 1? Exceptions were consistently present. Naruto's gaze sharpened as it focused on a figure that exuded a rebellious aura, characterized by a striking crimson ponytail. Renji Aburai, whose body language clearly conveyed a palpable disdain for Toshiro. Momo attempted to step in, but Naruto restrained her. "He is capable of managing it." Momo resigned and stepped back, assuming the role of an observer alongside him. Toshiro paused briefly to tilt his head and direct a stern gaze at Renji. "Are you lacking understanding? Souls do not undergo physical aging in the same manner as humans. I am aware, you know. Your age does not absolve you of childish behavior." "Is this regarding a toddler?" Toshiro expressed his disdain with a scoff. "You are approximately half a meter taller than I am. Your instructor is present. I will address this matter with you at a later time." Uninformed individual. The bald homeroom teacher entered with a commanding presence, firmly placing a stack of books on his table. He donned striking glasses that enhanced his keen presence. "Welcome to an important milestone in your academic journey, students. My name is Gengaro Onibara, and I serve as the homeroom teacher for the first-year students in Class 1. His introduction elicited complete silence in the classroom. Is there anyone present who can provide insight into the primary responsibility of a Shinigami? Momo promptly raised her hand. Safeguarding humanity from hollows through the purification process using a Zanpakuto. Cleansing hollows is essential for the protection of humanity, indeed. However, there is an aspect of greater significance to a Shinigami, Gengaro remarked, his attention shifting towards Naruto. Your presence at the opening ceremony was truly remarkable, Ishihara-san. Naruto rose to his feet and let out a light chuckle. Concealing genuine brilliance is akin to trying to obscure the sun with a cloud. It inevitably radiates through. Gengaro expressed amusement. That is an excellent point. The Gote 13 will have high expectations for you moving forward. Regarding our current inquiry, could you provide insight into the primary responsibility of a Shinigami? Oversight of the balance. In the absence of a harmonious equilibrium between realms, all will inevitably fall into disarray. Cleansing hollows served merely as a technique to attain the aforementioned balance. Ultimately, in the absence of balance, all realms would become distorted and merge into one another, ultimately resulting in a singular entity. Gengaro acknowledged his response with a nod of approval. Understood. The equilibrium between the realms is the Shinigami's highest priority. He surveyed the faces in front of him, taking a moment to consider each one, before directing his attention to the chalkboard to illustrate a diagram. Zankansoki. Zan pertains to techniques utilized in sword fighting. Ken pertains to techniques of unarmed combat. So pertains to movement techniques, while Ki denotes Kido. To attain the status of a Shinigami, it is essential to thoroughly understand all the techniques outlined in Zankansoki. The proficiency a student demonstrates in these techniques significantly influences their future within the Gote 13. It is essential to refine your skills if you aspire to join the Gote 13 or any of the specialized divisions. Put in the necessary effort, and you will successfully navigate the entrance test. Are there specific departments? Renji's voice interrupted, his hand lifted in inquiry. Could you please clarify what those are, Sensei? Certain divisions within the Gote 13 are designated for Shinigami possessing particular areas of expertise. Consider the second squad. It necessitates a high level of proficiency in Ho-Oh and Hikuda from its Shinigami members. To join the fourth squad, it is essential to possess skills in Kido and Kaido, as these are vital for delivering effective healing. Naruto elevated his hand. Can one be a member of two squads simultaneously? His question caused a significant disturbance in the classroom. A graduate of Shino Academy did not automatically secure a position in the Gote 13. Rather than focusing on Gote 13's acceptance, Naruto was considering the possibility of joining two squads. Gengaro raised his hand to restore order among the students. What is the reason, Student Ishihara? What benefits will there be in merging two squads? I was inquiring about the possibility. This has not been accomplished before, and I have reservations about its feasibility. Naruto exhaled deeply. He aimed to join both the 10th squad and the 4th squad, seeking to captivate Rangaku and Unohana simultaneously. Joining the 10th squad presented numerous advantages, particularly the opportunity to strengthen his connection with Isshin Shiba. It may be feasible. He needed to establish a scenario in which both captains recognized his strengths and reached an agreement to allow him to participate in both teams. Persuading Isshin of his capabilities would be straightforward. However, the same cannot be asserted for Retsu Unohana. The woman was of the same age as Captain Yamamoto. He needed to present something remarkable to capture her attention. An attribute that is uniquely hers, unmatched by anyone else. The inquiry is, how? Resting against the chair, he gently stroked Yoruichi's head on his lap while reflecting on the details concerning Unohana. Following a humbling encounter with Kenpachi Zaraki, she chose to leave behind a life of violence and dedicated herself to healing others. Even in the midst of Aizen's turmoil, she refrained from drawing her sword. She chose to wait until the Quincy War and the death of Yamamoto before utilizing her sword to assist Zaraki in regaining his powers. She maintained her passion for battles, yet she declined to engage, as though she had sworn an oath. I must engage with her competitive spirit. As I previously mentioned, partner, violence is fundamental to all matters. Shortly thereafter, the initial lecture concluded, and the subsequent lesson on Zanjutsu was scheduled to occur outdoors. The trio, Naruto, Momo, Shiro left the classroom, accompanied by Yoruichi in her feline form. Renji strategically approached Yoruichi from behind, fully intent on capturing her. His hands encountered empty space as Yoruichi gracefully leapt onto the window and then outside. The imaginative woman departed for yet another creative journey. Please refrain from disturbing Yoruichi-san, Momo admonished Renji. An apology to Shiro-chan is still pending. I apologize, Renji remarked with a patronizing laugh as he turned his gaze toward Naruto. Your cat reminds me of a friend of mine. Naruto's smile broadened as his gaze tracked a black-haired figure rounding the corner of the hallway. I assume your friend is not a feline. No, she is a female. Small and somewhat endearing, Renji articulated, his hand thoughtfully stroking his chin as he searched for an appropriate description from the recesses of his memories. She exhibits strong leadership qualities. Somewhat reminiscent of a rebellious leader. She can be quite challenging at times. Naruto's expression took on a playful quality. Understood. Is your friend known to have shoulder-length black hair? Indeed. How did you come to that conclusion? That was painful. Rukia decisively defeated Renji, causing him to fall to the ground. She applied pressure on his back several times. Please refrain from referring to my height. You individuals are remarkably tall anomalies. Renji rose to his feet and rubbed his cheeks thoughtfully. Please refrain from listening in on my conversations. It causes me to feel a sense of embarrassment. Who would have any interest in pursuing someone like you? Rukia let out a discontented huff and folded her arms across her chest. As her expression relaxed, she became aware of the students gathered around Renji, her attention shifting towards Naruto. Her initial impression was that he appeared even more attractive in person, and secondly, she noted his remarkable height in comparison to her own. Are you not the student who engaged in combat with Captain Soifan of the second squad? She was surprised to discover Renji in the company of the Academy's most renowned student at that time. Her friend experienced an unforeseen stroke of luck. He nearly secured a victory against a captain. Momo responded enthusiastically as she took hold of Rukia's hands. My name is Momo Hinamori. Who are you? Confronted with Momo's assertively amiable demeanor, Rukia nearly hesitated. She was not accustomed to interacting with individuals like Momo. Rukia. Rukia-san, would you like to establish a friendship? Certainly. Momo remained unaware of Rukia's discomfort and offered her a brief embrace. In that case, we are friends. Which class do you belong to? Class 2. Rukia bowed her head and exhaled deeply. They selected Renji but deemed me unfit for Class 1. There appears to be an issue with their vision. Hello. My spirit class is currently at rank 3. Your quantity is either 5 or 6. You do not possess the necessary skills, young lady. A subtle movement of Rukia's face resulted in Renji sustaining a bruised shin. The spectators observed the two engage in combat with smiles on their faces. Even Toshiro allowed himself a brief smile at the sight of Renji confronting the repercussions of his outspoken nature. The students from Class 1 and Class 2 were guided into a well-appointed dojo-like space. Polished wooden floors reflected the glimmering of ornate lanterns, and the room was equipped with a variety of training apparatus. Wooden dummies for Kido target practice, a dueling arena, and a designated area for exercise. The significant investment of resources by Central 46 in enhancing the facilities of Shino Academy is clearly evident. An experienced instructor, with a serious demeanor and eyes reflecting deep knowledge, advanced, his voice echoing through the quiet dojo. He commenced by clarifying the objective of this class. Each student was to be assigned an Asachi, and all were required to dedicate every waking moment to their Asachi, gradually imbuing it with the essence of their soul. This practice facilitates the union of the Zanpakuto and its master, unveiling the name of the Asachi and shaping their distinct Zanpakuto. Following the instructor's comprehensive lecture on the Asachi, the students organized themselves into a queue to obtain their Zanpakuto. Toshiro stood in front of Naruto, which meant it was his turn first. Naruto was interested to observe whether Toshiro would directly reveal his Zanpakuto spirit, Hirenmaru. Could you please provide your name, Toshiro Hitsugaya? Please step forward and channel your Riryoku into this. Toshiro carefully took the katana from the instructor's hands and infused it with his Riryoku. For a brief moment, there was silence, followed by a blue wave emanating from the base of the katana, enveloping the entire Asachi in a coating of frost. Crack. 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 The frost fragmented with precision. Hiranmaru expressed contentment at finally finding a place within the Asachi. Toshiro remained motionless, taken aback. He then remembered Naruto's remarks regarding his Zanpakuto spirit, which is characterized as a frost entity. He glanced over his shoulder, a look of gratitude evident in his eyes. You were correct. I informed you. The instructor smiled. You possess the ice element Ryotsu. Your Zanpakuto will possess ice attributes. Dedicate yourself to fostering this relationship, and you will undoubtedly achieve the status of a seated officer. Naruto contemplated thoughtfully, rubbing his chin. The instructor mistakenly perceived Hiranmaru's frost abilities as Toshiro's personal Ryotsu. Conversely, Toshiro represents a unique instance of a Zanpakuto spirit existing within an individual's soul, rather than emerging through a connection with Asachi. Toshiro held the katana firmly against his chest, appreciating its coolness and comfort. I will. It was now Naruto's turn. Upon providing his name and class to the instructor, he was issued his Asachi. He paused to examine the Asachi closely. The katana was remarkably unremarkable in its design. Unimpressive. He stepped back and infused his Riryoku into the Asachi. He sensed that a fragment of his essence had vanished into the blade. A surge of deep crimson flames erupted, enveloping the katana. He anticipated a certain level of progress following his observation of Toshiro's Hiranmaru. Nami's reaction was surprising to him. Greetings, partner. What actions are you taking towards me? Nami's tone suggested a state of inebriation or heightened excitement, possibly a combination of the two. I am experiencing a profound internal struggle. I am feeling extremely unwell. I am no longer alive. What is occurring? Partner, Nami's voice was devoid of any energy. I am experiencing a sense of drowsiness. Nami. The flames extinguished immediately following the departure of Nami's voice. She ceased all communication with him as if she had lost consciousness. What was that? The instructor stood up and approached to assess his Asachi. Fire-type spiritual energy. Is it possible that it is the same type of Zanpakuto spirit as that of the Captain Commander? Despite the instructor's intense demeanor, Naruto focused on the katana, noting the subtle alteration in its design. A carmine red bead was set into the hilt of the weapon. The bead bore a resemblance to those found on Nami in her phoenix form. Naruto contemplated, scratching his head thoughtfully. I share your confusion, sensei. Interesting. The nature of our Zanpakuto remains enigmatic, the instructor remarked with a nod. Ensure the proper maintenance of your Asachi. It will acknowledge your sincerity. Naruto acknowledged and stepped away from the queue. All efforts to reach Nami were unsuccessful. She remained consistent with her final remarks regarding falling asleep. Two truths were evident to him. His Zanpakuto was of the flame type, and its spirit would either emerge from his own soul or represent a fusion of his essence and Nami's. He offered a silent prayer for the former. Having one overly devoted individual in his life was sufficient. He did not require an additional yandere to add to the complexities. Unfortunately, that is not ideal. I may have inadvertently caused an unfavorable outcome. I'm here to help. What would you like to talk about today? Isshin's heavy footsteps echoed in the 10th Squad's barracks as he made his way back to his office, clearly feeling the weight of exhaustion. He flopped down into his chair with a big sigh, his body really craving some comfort. Rangaku, could you grab me some tea? I'm really thankful to you for everything. Rangaku got up from her seat and gave him a good tap on the head with her knuckle. I'm not here to serve you. Sure thing. My head is just pounding right now. I'm not really used to getting up early. He looked like he was really hurting, but Rangaku just stood there without moving an inch. Isshin just dropped down, face first onto his table. Could you please? With her resolve finally wavering, Rangaku let out a sigh, her expression softening. She stepped out of the office for a bit and came back a few minutes later, carrying a tray with 2 steaming cups of tea. Wow, that smells amazing. Isshin sat up, his eyes bright and full of life, completely forgetting the pain he had just felt. Can you give me that? Rangaku proudly puffed out her chest while serving the tea, her eyes sparkling with satisfaction. I know it's a bit of a hassle, but I have to say, I'm pretty good at it. She learned the art of brewing by watching Izan Katetsu and Nanao Eyes, the tea brewing experts at the Shinigami Women's Association. She had really sharpened her skills through careful observation. She plopped down on the couch over there on the side. What went down out there? Did that guy make it through the entrance exam? It was pretty clear that Rangaku was talking about Naruto, especially since Isshin had made the effort to check out the outcome. She had curiosity written all over her face. As he sipped his tea, a satisfied hum escaped Isshin's lips, and he raised an eyebrow in curiosity. What's with the sudden worry about his results? Rangaku just shrugged. Nothing at all. I was thinking it might be a good idea for him to kick off a singing club in the Shinigami Association. It would be such a shame for his voice to just go to waste in Rukongai. Having spent a lot of time exploring the other world for clothes and fashion, she couldn't help but notice that the Seirei was pretty lacking when it came to entertainment. They put out a bulletin with some fun stories every couple of years, and that was pretty much it. Naruto's voice could really kick off a whole new wave in the industry. It seems like Rangaku was really aiming to grab the spotlight for the revolution and cash in big time. Isshin waved his hand like it was no big deal. Let's get rid of those awful clubs. I'm going to train Naruto to become the next captain. Rangaku's eyes went wide. According to the hierarchy, I should be the next captain. You're not really putting in the effort, are you? You're ditching your responsibilities to hit the bars, and you still haven't unlocked your Bankai for your Zanpakuto. Your experience is what truly makes you captain material. Isshin's voice was straightforward, his words striking Rangaku like arrows aimed right at her. With a heavy sigh, she flopped down onto the couch, her thoughts all jumbled up. She was able to fix the first two issues, but that tricky Bankai release kept bothering her like a riddle she just couldn't crack. Sadly, you had to have Bankai release to become a captain. Hineka, why can't I just make you appear? To help a Zanpakuto evolve, it was important to bring its spirit into the physical world and subjugate them. Rangaku always struggled with the first part of the process, materialization. I'm not sure, Hineka said from her inner world. It seems like there's some room for improvement in your skills. It's due to your age. I'm still young, you know. Rangaku leaned back, folding her arms behind her head with a sigh. She easily communicated with her Zanpakuto spirit and had plenty of Ryotsu to be considered a vice captain. With her talent, she should breeze through the Bankai release without any issues. It felt like the universe was a bit jealous of what she could achieve with another evolution of her Zanpakuto. I really don't feel like dealing with this. She fidgeted a bit before finally glancing over at Isshin. Captain. I'm feeling like having a drink all of a sudden. Make the changes without me. I'm here to help. What do you need assistance with today? In another corner, in the softly lit second squad barracks, Soifan was sitting in a lotus position, lost in meditation, her mind troubled by her recent defeat. She could feel it all, the techniques, the style, and the flow of combat. Everything about her opponent was resonating in her mind. Did her predecessor train a student before or after she was exiled? So, did she just decide to train him on a whim? Or was there something more going on behind the scenes? She really wanted some answers. Come on, enough with the delusions, her Zanpakuto spirit, Suzumaki, said, her voice laced with a hint of sarcasm. Stop idolizing that boring noble girl. Look for a genuine guy. As always, Suzumaki had some sharp words about her admiration for Yoruichi Shiwan. The guy you fought would be a good fit for your squad. Bring him on board and help him grow into your partner. You've got to be kidding me. For the next hour, she completely brushed off Suzumaki and had one of her guys watch Naruto's activities around the academy. There was nothing unethical about what she did for a living. She wasn't even stalking a first-year student who had no bad intentions towards her. In a cozy, traditional room, there was a stunning woman with beautiful black hair. At first glance, you might see her as the perfect picture of graceful beauty, and you'd never guess she's actually the most notorious criminal in the Soul Society's history. Yachiru Unohana, now fully embracing her new identity as Retsu Unohana, had done a great job of hiding the shadows of her past. Her braids cleverly concealed the one mark that hinted at her history. Today, she wasn't in her 4th squad barracks, instead, she was in a conference room. The space was decorated with a paper banner that hung from the ceiling, proudly announcing in fancy script, Shinigami Women's Association. This room served as a gathering place for the powerful women of the Gote 13, where they would come together to brainstorm and devise strategies to enhance the lives of Shinigami in the Seirei. Hana joined this association for straightforward reasons, without any hidden ambitions behind her decision. It was just a choice that was swayed by Izan deciding to join in. Her eyes, soft but sharp, moved around the room, pausing for a moment on the familiar and respected faces in the Seirei. Rangaku Matsumoto from the 10th Squad. Yachiru Kusajishi of the 11th. Kion Katetsu from the 13th. And Nanao Eyes from the 8th. She couldn't help but focus on the small figure with short raven black hair, the only other captain there besides her. Soi Fan. Hana hadn't faced many opponents who could be as tough with their fists as Soi Fan. She would have really enjoyed a good, honest fight with Soi Fan, but her time for that kind of battle was behind her. Now, she was just a simple healer. Soi Fan seems a bit out of it. So, what's on the agenda for today? Rangaku's voice, along with a relaxed yawn, interrupted Hana's train of thought. I'm really feeling like I need some sleep. Soi Fan narrowed her eyes, locking her gaze onto Rangaku. When do you feel like skipping sleep or passing on a drink? Soi Fan, the captain of the 2nd Squad, didn't often show up to these meetings. Whenever she checked in, it was usually to see Rangaku completely wasted or catching some Z's. Rangaku, unbothered, playfully squeezed her breasts with a cheeky grin. I can't help it if these sweaty pups are always making my back ache. To make her point, she playfully lifted her assets, teasingly almost letting them spill out of her kimono. Soi Fan took a step back, her face filled with shock. Please, just keep them away from me. Unohana let out a soft giggle. No worries, Rangaku. There's no need to push yourself to go to this meeting. Rangaku just shook her head. I really want to be here, Retsu. This is the one spot that really gets where I'm coming from. Let's find ways to make our daily lives better and add a bit more fun, Vice Chairwoman Nanao Eyes. Yachiru shouted, hitting the floor with enthusiasm. She was a young girl with pink hair and a constant blush on her cheeks. What's on today's agenda? Nanao pushed her glasses up and pulled out a stack of reports, handing them out to each woman in the room. This was the intel she had gathered from her own sources, not from the Gote 13 information network. This is a serious matter. Yachiru hummed and nodded while reading the report aloud. So, there's this student named Naruto Uzumaki who mastered all the Kido that students can learn. In just 3 months, he took on instructors from the Kuchiki clan in Zanjutsu and Shunpo, and even outperformed members of the Fan clan in Hakuda. Pretty impressive, right? Soi Fan's body tensed up, and she went pale as that name, the one that kept creeping into her thoughts, came back to her mind. It's him. Hana looked up from the report, her voice showing her curiosity. A really impressive student. Right now, he really ought to graduate early and become part of the Gote 13. After living for centuries, she had seen so many prodigies come and go, but none intrigued her quite like the Rukongai child who managed to outshine her. When you stack up Kenpachi Zaraki against any genius, it feels like everyone else is just kind of average. Nanao made a face. This section focused solely on his accomplishments. Check out the next part. You'll understand why I mentioned him here. Hana shot her a puzzled glance before moving on with the reports. So, there's this buzz going around that in just 3 months, Naruto Uzumaki has been linked to 13 women. Can you believe it? And get this, 9 of them are actually instructors and staff from the academy. The student says he's the best Kaido user in the Soul Society. He's looking to be both a fighter and a healer. He wants to be a battle healer. Hana couldn't help but smile, amused by Naruto Uzumaki's boldness. A few hundred years back, there was this brilliant guy named Koga Kuchiki who caused quite a stir, so much so that the Captain Commander and Captain Kuchiki had to jump in and seal him away. Battle healer. Is this kid trying to be like me? Hana really nailed the whole Kaido thing. Healing, to keep her fights going longer. Did Naruto have the same dreams? She was a little curious. Izan frowned seriously. So, where did he pick up Kaido? The academy skipped over the basics of Kaido, and now she's left wondering if there's a connection to someone in the 4th Squad. Nanao took a moment to think about Izane's question. I wasn't able to find it. Soifan folded her arms across her chest. I've got an idea, but I want to make sure my hunch is right first. Wait, is that from the exiled Captain Yoruichi Shiwan? Hana spoke softly, her voice warm and inviting, paired with a smile that seemed to understand everything. Oh, really? Soifan came to a sudden stop. Wait, how did you know? It seems like you only get really interested when the conversation is about Yoruichi. I remember hearing about how this student went toe-to-toe with you to a draw during the academy's opening ceremony. Soifan sighed. I'm really not interested in Yoruichi-sama. I just want to prove to her that I'm better at her job than she is. Unoha let out a soft, knowing giggle, her hand gently covering her mouth. Her eyes sparkled with a playful glint. So, are you saying you wouldn't have a problem with Naruto Uzumaki being in a relationship with Yoruichi Shiwan? The thought of Yoruichi sharing a bed with a guy sent a chill down Soifan's spine. Something inside her broke, and you could see the wild panic shining in her eyes. She spoke in a soft, eerie whisper before disappearing from the room as quickly as a flash, leaving behind just a hint of her inner turmoil. Izan hid her face behind her palm. Captain, what did you do? Hana shrugged, looking as innocent as can be. I didn't do anything, Izan. Nanao, go ahead and keep the meeting going. Nanao gave the green board a good smack. Alright ladies, we really need to talk about this guy. He's a real problem for all the women in the Seirei. We really can't let him go wild. He really needs to learn to respect women and not just see them as objects for his sexual desires. She grabbed a piece of chalk and wrote, Operation Humble the Genius. Nanao honestly didn't want Naruto to turn into a more predatory version of her Captain Shunsui. He enjoyed teasing women, but he never crossed any lines, but he had already been involved with several women. They needed to get him back before he went too far. Rangaku, who had been quiet up to this point, lifted her hand. I think you guys are overreacting. Naruto is a family friend of my captain, Isshin. He came across as a pretty nice guy to me. You know, looks can be deceiving, Nanao remarked, casting a quick look at Hana. Captain Hana, do you have any thoughts on this? Hana tilted her head a bit. Let him graduate and come work in my department. She shut her eyes, a smile creeping onto her lips that felt both calm and a bit eerie, creating a vibe that sent a chill through the room. I've got him covered. Handling a wild pup was a piece of cake for someone like her. The real intrigue was in wondering how much of a struggle the pup would put up before giving in to her will. Do you think it would get her heart racing? Hana was excited about the chance to meet the guy who might just match her endless craving for a good fight. Nanao just shook her head. That's after he graduates. What if he's not interested in graduating early? We really need to put a stop to him taking advantage of women at the Shino Academy. Exploit is a bit of a stretch, Nanao, Rangaku said. He's not making the students or teachers sleep with him. They're doing it because they want to. Who are we to step in and mess with their lives? Rangaku couldn't help but speak up about Nanao's wild accusations against her up-and-coming superstar. Nanao paused for a moment, lost in thought. I think he's using his amazing voice to charm women. She hadn't heard it herself, but all the buzz suggested that Naruto's voice was super soothing and charming to the ladies. The most mysterious thing about the infamous playboy of Shino Academy was definitely intriguing. Rangaku lifted her eyebrows in surprise. He has a nice voice, but I wouldn't say it's anything out of this world. Izan tilted her head, a spark of curiosity dancing in her eyes. Captain, would it be alright if I meet the battle healer before his graduation? Sure, you can, Hana said with a smile. How about suggesting that he graduates early and applies to our division? Rangaku put her hand on Izan's shoulder. I'll join you and meet him. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.